The man walked into the courtroom with handcuffs around his wrists. His clothes were old and torn. One shoe had a broken sole. The other was a size too small. His hands shook a little as he walked, and his head stayed low. He looked worn out, not just from the cold outside, but from years of hard living. He didn't make a sound. He only spoke when someone asked. "Name?" the court clerk asked. The man looked up slowly. His voice was quiet and shaky. "Daniel Grayson, Sergeant First Class, United States Army." The room fell silent for a second. It wasn't just what he said. It was the way he said it, calm and steady, like it still meant something to him, like he still carried it deep inside, even if most people in the room didn't seem to care. The judge looked up from her papers. Her eyes rested on him, just for a moment. Then she looked back down like nothing happened. The people sitting in the courtroom didn't pay much attention. To them, he was just another homeless man who got in trouble. Just one more case on the list. No one thought much about him. No one expected anything special. But something was about to happen. Because that man, the quiet one with the tired eyes and worn-down boots, wasn't just another face. And very soon, everyone in that courtroom would stand up because of him. Daniel Grayson is 72 years old. His back hurts most days, and walking isn't easy anymore. He served as a medic in the Army. 3 tours, always running toward danger, not away from it. He earned a Bronze Star, but never made a fuss about it. After he came home, things slowly fell apart. His wife passed away not long after his last tour. The pain in his body grew worse, and the noise in his head never stopped. He tried to get help, but the system was slow. Too much paperwork, too many delays. He kept missing the right forms. His benefits were stuck somewhere, but no one seemed to know where. One day turned into 1 year, and then into many. His savings ran out. He couldn't work anymore. And little by little, he slipped through the cracks. Now Daniel sleeps under a bridge. On good days, he gets a hot meal from a church down the street. On cold nights, he sits by the back of a diner, right next to the warm air vent near the kitchen. He doesn't beg. He doesn't cause trouble. He just tries to stay warm, maybe eat half a sandwich if someone's kind enough. That night, someone saw him behind the diner and didn't stop to ask questions. They called the police, said a man was loitering near the building. The officer came, found Daniel curled near the vent, holding an old army jacket tight around his shoulders. He didn't run, didn't argue, just asked softly, "Can I have 5 more minutes?" "My legs are still cold." They cuffed him anyway. And that's how he ended up here, back in a courtroom, not for stealing or hurting anyone, but just for trying to stay warm. Daniel sat quietly at the front of the courtroom. His hands rested on his knees. The cuffs were gone now, but his coat was still too thin, and his fingers were still shaking. A young prosecutor stood up. His suit was clean, his hair neat. His voice was firm, like he had said these lines many times before. "This is the 4th time this year Mr. Grayson has been found sleeping behind local businesses. He continues to trespass even after being warned." He didn't mention the cold. He didn't mention the nights below freezing. He didn't mention that Daniel was found sitting near a warm vent, just trying to rest. Then the officer who made the arrest took the stand. His voice was flat. "I asked him to leave. He didn't argue, just asked for 5 more minutes to finish a sandwich." There was no anger in his tone, just words. The judge asked if Daniel had a lawyer. The answer was no. His public defender had been called away to another case. Daniel stood on his own. His voice was quiet. "I was just cold, ma'am. I wasn't bothering nobody." Then he sat back down, his shoulders small inside that oversized jacket, patched up in the sleeves. He looked down at the floor. His boots were scuffed. His socks didn't match. Most people in the room weren't paying much attention. They shuffled papers, looked at their phones. Just another case. But then, something changed. The judge picked up his file again. This time she read it slower, and something in her eyes stopped moving. She looked at him, not past him, for the first time, and the courtroom started to shift, just a little. The judge flipped through Daniel's file slowly now. Her hands paused on one page. Her eyes didn't move. She read something twice, maybe 3 times. Then her face changed, just a little. She leaned back in her chair, pressed her lips together. then softly whispered something under her breath, too quiet for anyone to hear. Without saying much, she stood and asked for a short recess. She stepped into her chambers, closing the door gently behind her. Inside, she walked to an old drawer, unlocked it, pulled out a small worn folder. Inside was a letter, folded many times. The paper had gone soft at the edges from years of reading. It was from her brother, sent from Afghanistan in 2007. She read it again, slowly, carefully. "Tell Mom not to worry. I'm safe. We've got a medic with us, Sergeant Daniel Grayson. He's the real deal. Saved me yesterday when I took shrapnel to the leg. Pulled 3 others out too. I don't know how he's still standing." Her hand trembled a little as she held the letter. Then she looked back at the file in her hands. Same name, same service number, same man. She stood still for a long time. That letter had been the last one her brother ever sent. He died 2 weeks later, and now sitting quietly in her courtroom was the medic who had saved him, Sergeant Daniel Grayson. Older now, worn down by time, but still standing. She took a long breath and went back out. When the judge walked back into the courtroom, something about her was different. Her steps were slower. Her eyes looked softer. She didn't say anything yet. Just sat down and looked at Daniel. But before she could speak, the back door opened. A man in a sharp suit walked in. People turned to look. He carried a leather briefcase and moved with quiet purpose. He stopped beside Daniel and said clearly, "Your Honor, I'm representing Mr. Grayson from this point forward. Michael Trent, private counsel." Everyone was confused. Even Daniel looked up in surprise. The judge blinked. "Mr. Trenta, this is highly unusual. You weren't listed on this case." Michael nodded politely. "I was asked to come by someone who owes this man their life." The courtroom was still. Nobody asked who made the call. Nobody had to. Daniel looked at the man beside him, unsure. "I didn't ask for a lawyer," he said softly. Michael smiled just a little. "You didn't have to." He opened his briefcase, pulled out a few documents, and placed them gently on the defense table. The judge leaned forward. "Very well, proceed." Daniel sat a little taller now, still quiet, still unsure, but no longer alone. For the first time in a long time, someone had shown up for him. The judge looked down at Daniel again, but now there was care in her voice. "Sergeant Grayson," she said slowly, "may I ask you about Kandahar, 2007? Daniel took a breath. His hands rested on his knees. His eyes, tired but steady, met hers. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "That was my last real day in uniform." The room was quiet. He told the story plainly. No big words, no drama, just the truth. "There was a convoy hit by a roadside bomb. Fire everywhere. I heard shouting. I ran in. Pulled one man out. Then another. Then 2 more. I don't remember the pain till after. Just the sound of boots dragging and someone screaming for help." He paused, looked down at his hands. "That was my last day as a soldier." No one spoke. Then from the back row a man stood. He wore a brown coat, silver hair, and a cane leaned against his seat. "That's him," he said. "I was there. I'm alive because of him." People turned. The man didn't sit back down. Another stood. "He saved my uncle." Then a young woman. "He pulled my father out of that truck. I was just a baby." One by one they rose. Old soldiers, grown-up kids, strangers who weren't strangers anymore. They didn't cheer. They didn't speak loud. They just stood. Not for a hero in a medal, but for a man in an old coat who had once said yes when it mattered most. And Daniel just looked around, heart full, unsure how to take it all in. Judge Callahan sat up straighter now. She took off her reading glasses, her voice calm but firm. "This courtroom owes Sergeant Daniel Grayson more than silence." She looked at the prosecutor. "All charges are dismissed, with prejudice." A quiet murmur spread through the room. She wasn't done. "This man," she said, "should have never been in cuffs. Not today. Not ever." She turned back to Daniel. "You were arrested for sleeping near heat vents. You were charged with trespassing while trying not to freeze. That's not justice. That's what happens when a system forgets who someone really is." The young prosecutor shifted in his seat, face flushed, but he didn't say a word. Judge Callahan's voice softened now. Sergeant Grayson has done more for this country than most of us ever will. He didn't ask for thanks. He just asked to be warm. She picked up a folder from her bench. I'm ordering the city's veteran support team to start processing full services immediately. Medical, housing, and legal aid. Today. Someone clapped. Just one person, then another. Not a loud crowd, not wild cheers, just slow, respectful claps from people who now understood what they had almost missed. Daniel didn't smile, but he nodded, just once, and that was enough. Just as the clapping faded, the back doors of the courtroom opened. Two uniformed officers walked in. Quiet, steady, no announcement. One was a major. The other, a younger sergeant, carried a black case with careful hands. They made their way to the front without a word. The judge stood. So did Attorney Trent. The rest of the courtroom followed. The major saluted Daniel, then spoke gently. Sergeant First Class Daniel Grayson, United States Army, you have been located under the Veterans Reinstatement Program. Daniel looked confused. The major explained, your file was flagged last month. Someone in D.C. recognized your name. You were supposed to receive full disability benefits, housing, and back pay 10 years ago. But the paperwork got lost. Daniel blinked hard. I didn't know. We know, the major replied. And we're here to fix it. The young sergeant stepped forward and opened the case. Inside sat a bronze star, polished and shining. You were awarded this for bravery in Kandahar, he said, voice steady. But it was never delivered. With permission from the court, we'd like to do that now. He placed the medal in Daniel's hands. Everyone stood still. No music, no ceremony, just silence, full of respect. Daniel didn't say much, just looked down at the medal, then up at the young sergeant. And for a moment, you could see the soldier he still was, steady, quiet, and never forgotten. A week after the courtroom moment, Daniel stood outside a quiet brick building. It wasn't big, just a small VA-supported apartment complex for veterans like him. But it had heat, a bed, and a door that locked. A place that was his. The caseworker handed him the key. Daniel held it in his hand for a long time before saying, never thought I'd have one of these again. Inside, the apartment was plain but clean. A small couch, a chair, a table by the window. On the counter sat a welcome basket. Canned soup, socks, and a handwritten note. Thank you for your service. He placed his bronze star on the shelf, right next to a photo they had given him. A copy of that courtroom moment where everyone stood. A few days later, the judge came by. Not in her robe, just in jeans and a sweater, holding a tray of baked chicken. Her nephew was with her, a quiet boy with bright eyes. This is my late brother's son, she said softly. The man you saved. Daniel knelt a little stiffly, smiled at the boy and said, your dad was the bravest I ever met. He kept calm even when the sky was falling. He made others brave too. The boy didn't say much, just nodded, then gave Daniel a hug. From that day on, they visited often, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to sit. The boy started calling him Sergeant Dan, and slowly Daniel began to feel like part of a family again, not one by blood, but one by choice. Months later, a small bronze plaque was placed on the courthouse wall. It didn't make headlines, but it didn't need to. It read, in honor of Sergeant Daniel Grayson, quiet valor in plain sight. People pass it every day. Some stop to read it. Some place a hand on the medal. A few leave small flags or flowers, just little signs that they remember. Daniel still walks to the diner on Sundays, but now he sits at a booth inside. He orders hot coffee and smiles at the waitress who always remembers his name. He brings a crossword puzzle and wears the same patch coat. Not because he has to, but because it feels like part of his story. Children wave. Teens hold the door. Older men nod with knowing eyes. And sometimes the judge walks by. No robe, just a kind smile and a hand raised in quiet respect. Daniel nods back. For the first time in years, he doesn't feel forgotten, because now he's not. If this story touched you, please don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and comment down your opinions. Thanks for watching.